2023 Planning Commission meeting to order. Can you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call. Commissioners seated are Leland, Ruth Ann, Nick, and absent is Roxy, and Jane is seated in Roxy's place, and Ileana and Eric is seated in Ileana's place. And I am seated for Gary, who is absent and as the commissioner today. The chair. I am already a commissioner. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda? Oops. Okay, are there any additions or corrections from the meeting minutes from August 10th, 2023?
No, I don't have any.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from the previous meeting, August, 10th, 2023.
I second.
The motion was moved by Roxy, Nick, and seconded by Ruth Ann. We'll go for commissioner approval.
Aye.
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 I will note that I was not on the dais, but I approve.
Aye.
And the chair also approves. So it passes unanimously. Next up, this is a public hearing. We are going to open the public hearing at 7:04 p.m. The item on the agenda is item A, Newlin Crossing Townhomes Sketch and Preliminary Plan. Staff presentation?
Yes, give us one moment and we'll have it pulled up.
Sure, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Julia Duncan, Associate Planner. Before you this evening is the Newlin Crossing Townhome Sketch and Preliminary Plan. The subject property is generally located at the northeast corner of Main Street and Chambers Road. The site is currently undeveloped and is west of the Carousel Farm single-family development, south of Stonegate single-family development in unincorporated Douglas County, east of Sierra Ridge single-family residences and a self-storage development in unincorporated Douglas County, and north of the Cobblestone Ridge Club and Open Space. The applicant is requesting the approval of the sketch and preliminary plans for the Newlin Crossing Townhomes development. The sketch and preliminary plan applications propose 96 attached single-family townhome lots and 3.877 acres of open space. Newlin Crossing filing number 2 replatted Tract M for the future development of the townhomes before you this evening. The applicant has completed a master utility, traffic, and drainage studies for the entire Newlin Crossing PD that has been reviewed by staff and determined to be acceptable. The proposed sketch and preliminary plans are consistent with the previous Town Council approved sketch and preliminary plans. The townhome site location is designated as Planning Area 5 in the Newlin Crossing PD. The sketch and preliminary plans applications, as mentioned previously, are for 96 attached single-family townhome lots and 3.877 acres of open space. Gross density for the project is 10.2 dwelling units per acre. Maximum building heights will be up to 40 feet. Density and setbacks will be required to be consistent with the town's multifamily standards, as well as the PD guide, and will be reviewed during the final plat and site plan review process. The Newlin Crossing development will be served by the West Parker Road extension as a new collector roadway. West Parker Road will provide 2 access points for the overall development from Main Street and Chambers Road. The collector road forms the backbone and circulation within the development. Approved Newlin Gulch filing number 2, which has already been platted and recorded, shows an east-west connection between the Newlin Crossing development and the existing Carousel Farms development. The Newlin Gulch Trail tracks will serve as a future pedestrian circulation component. The site will provide 2 points of access from West Parker Road. 1 point of access will be Tundra Top Drive, which will create right-of-way street access internal to the site and include alley intersections. A second point of access will provide a private drive connection to West Parker Road. The total Newlin Crossing PD requires 5.966 acres of parks, and when I say the total, that's the entire planned development. 6.026 acres of parks are provided in planning areas 1 and planning areas 2, fulfilling that requirement. So there's no individual park space within this townhome tract, but the parks that are created in the other filings meet our code requirements, and because it's part of a greater PD, are sufficient and meet that requirement. Therefore, no additional parks are required for this filing. However, 1.88 acres of open space is required, and 3.877 acres of open space is being provided. And these are charts detailing what I just walked you through. Staff has reviewed the proposal and has determined that the project is consistent with the master plan. The proposal provides adequate access, infrastructure, drainage facilities, and design considerations, and utilities providers have confirmed capacity and availability. And all referral agency comments have been addressed or will be addressed at the time of the final plat, and the public notice requirements have been satisfied. Therefore, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve the Newlin Crossing Townhomes sketch and preliminary plan. This concludes staff's report. The applicant's representative is here tonight. They did have a presentation if you'd like. It would cover a lot of what I've gone through already, but they're also available to say hello and answer any questions you may have.
Good.
Perfect. Does any of the commissioners have questions for Julia?
Not at this time.
No.
Okay. Applicant, you guys want to come up and give a presentation? And can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Is this one on, Julie? Yep, it is. Alan Cunningham. I'm with PCS Group. Our address is 200 Kalamath Street in Denver, 80223. We do have a presentation. We can run through it. It's going to be pretty redundant with Julia's, so I'll probably just try and go really quick. Might even skip a couple of slides. We do have a couple that are an illustrative version of the site plan, which we're not actually here before you tonight for, but I felt that maybe it just gave a little bit more context to the sketch and preliminary plan. So if we can pull that up, we can. Yeah, I had a bunch of other slides in there for backup if they were needed for question and answer. The actual slides we were going to go through, I only had a few, so. So again, there's a few team members on here. As mentioned, I'm Al Cunningham with PCS Group, helping with the planning and landscape architecture. Ken Peterson with Lennar, the applicant, is also here, as is Brian Wilson, the civil engineer from Westwood. So between us, hopefully we can answer any questions you might have. This slide, again, showing the context that Julia already kind of showed. It shows both Newlin Crossing and where the townhome parcel sits within it, so I don't think we need to dwell on that one. So next slide, please. This one's a little bit different. It shows the community overlaid on a bird's eye perspective. I think it gives a good feel. You can see where Newlin Gulch bisects the site, kind of curves through the middle. It's a little hard to see, but behind the yellow parcel, which is the townhome one we're talking about, that's where West Parker Road sort of curves behind that, connecting Main Street over to Chambers. So that's the collector that comes through the middle of the property and connects both sides of it on either side of the gulch. And as you can see, the townhome parcel that's highlighted in yellow is surrounded by Main Street on the south. It has West Parker Road on the east and north sides as it curves around and then crosses the gulch. And then the gulch defines the western side of this parcel. Next slide, please. Don't really need to talk about this one because I think Julie just did. It's just extrapolated from the PD, basically the same plan. This one's it's a little hard to see washed out on the site, but just to give you a little bit of an idea of phasing, you'll notice filing 1 isn't identified on here. Filing 1 was essentially the original plat that was done on here, creating the tracks, right-of-ways, and other. So filing 2, when we reference it, is the pinkish color on the eastern side. That's already approved and virtually ready for construction. It's gone through the prairie dog mitigation and just waiting for permits at this point in time to start the BMPs and then start grading on it. Filing 3 is close behind. We're in the final throes of working with staff on approval of those construction docs. So it would come in right behind filing 2 from a construction standpoint. And then filing 4 is this application tonight, the sketch and preliminary plan for the townhomes that are tracking a little behind because it had to go through the site plan process in addition to the other. So next slide, please. So this one just cuts in the illustrative portion. It's labeled as filing 4 right there. You see the townhomes with the 96 units labeled, where it sits adjacent to filing 2 in the neighborhood park. And then the 2 on the western side, the 2, just to point out to you, the PA3 and PA4 that you see, those are future commercial parcels. Those weren't purchased by Lennar. They were held back by the previous landowner. So those you'll see sometime in the future, but by others, not by this team. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea on the architecture, there'll be a variety in here within the 96 units, both in terms of size and style. There's multiple styles. There's a sampling on here that you can see in the 3 elevations that are shown. The Colorado Modern in the upper right. Below it is the modern hill country style, and then a contemporary farmhouse version to the left of that. And there's a mix of unit sizes between 3 and 6 units distributed throughout. And then we put the perspective up top to, I think it does a better job of kind of showing the interest in the quality of the buildings and the interest that comes from the building articulation, and then with a combination of color and materials, how that'll live and look. I think it just gives a little more depth and interest than just seeing the elevations. So next slide, please. So this was kind of the final one. As I mentioned, this is just an illustrative version of the preliminary site plan that's been approved. That's the basis of the more technical drawing that Julia showed you for the sketch and preliminary plan, how those lots are configured. You can see the cul-de-sac for Tundra Top Drive that comes in with the right-of-way, and then how the other alleys connect. There's off-street parking within and spread throughout on those alleys. And largely the configuration comes, I'm sure most of you are familiar with where the site sits, and there's a bunch of grade that falls from Main Street down to the site, and it's a little bit lower. So dealing with the grade and making everything work from a connectivity standpoint was a challenge, but we're happy with the way it turned out, and we're able to remain compliant with the PD and with the other standards as we worked through the preliminary site plan. So with that, like I said, the 3 of us are here, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for the applicant?
I have a couple of questions. I know that parking is not part of this, and that's done with the actual site planning, but what are your thoughts in terms of how you're going to fit in a sufficient guest parking and parking for service vehicles and that sort of thing? Because that can be tight in a townhome
Right.
development.
I think given the way it sort of has spread out, it actually helped us some in this. You know, when we've done other projects like this and they get super gridded, it gets really tight. In this one, sort of having the alley that connects over to Tundra Top meander through, it gave us the opportunity to spread out and have some off-street parking. And I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I know that between all of the units have garages for the residents, and then between on-street parking on Tundra Top and then off-street pull-offs that are spread throughout, we're actually confident we can, when we get to the next level, we'll meet and exceed, I think, the parking requirements, and we can actually distribute it pretty well throughout.
Excellent. Will they be mostly single car or two-car garages, or a mix?
There's a mix.
Okay.
There's one smaller, there's a range of product sizes in the townhomes, and there's a smaller unit on the inside that, you know, it's smaller in square footage, and with that, I believe that one's a single car, and then all the rest of them are double car. So it's a mix, but I think it's skewed towards 2-car garages on the majority of them.
And are you planning to put in 220 in the garages for being able to charge electric vehicles?
They're prepped for that, and I think we do, but I honestly don't remember the specs.
Okay.
I think so.
We'll be prepped to have an answer for that one as we move to kind of final site plan. I think that, yeah, as Ken's indicating, I think they wire it for it, but I'm not sure if it's in there or
And
not.
do you plan to have any charging stations available in the parking areas that are designated for visitors?
We're not currently planning for that.
Okay.
I'll just say thank you for answering questions that are speculative.
Well, the reason I ask them now, and that makes it for the
staff.
mentioning that there was a concern regarding the water availability. Could you give, because there was no actual information on that in the packet we got, we did get supplemental material. Could you explain kind of how that all worked?
Absolutely. So this is part of the Stonegate Village Metro District. They reviewed this application as part of the greater plan development, and I'll pull that up. I reached out directly. Stonegate Village doesn't use our online e-tracket system, so the majority of our correspondence is through email communications. Stonegate provided this statement earlier today to supplement some of the questions we received from Commission. Stonegate entered into an inclusion sanitary sewer taps, including the ability to serve them and the terms for the inclusion. Although we have set a maximum of 450 SFE for this whole project, we believe the development style would be substantially less than that number at what was expected when they included.
As this is a public hearing, we will open the forum for public comment. Is there any further information from staff or applicant that is needed?
I don't.
Okay. Staff and applicant, any further information to present? Okay. So we'll close public hearing at 7:20 p.m.
Prouder of open space, so I think it's a well-thought-out plan. I think that the concerns about parking will be addressed when it's time. And I encourage you to look at charging options for not only the folks who own the townhomes, but the people who visit them from out of town who drive electric cars. I will be in support of the project.
I'm in agreement with Ruth. I think seeing, townhomes come into this larger development to kind of round out all options in that area is great to see, and I'm in approval of this project.
Yep. I think it's a great addition to the surrounding community that's currently under development, and definitely in support of everything. Thank you.
I would agree with my fellow commissioners, and I can imagine the topography challenges that were faced by the developer, and I appreciate them being able to kind of fit this project in the right place.
I agree with my fellow commissioners. All the responses you gave back through the emails and stuff was fantastic. You guys put a lot of good work in, and I do appreciate it.
Yeah, I really didn't have anything to add, but I'm also in support of the project. I think it's great. You guys are bringing some townhome product into the town, well needed. I'm also in support. So I will call for a motion. Does anybody want to move it?
I didn't open up the official things.
I move the Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve the requested Newlin Crossing Townhome sketch plan.
I'll second.
Okay, it was moved by Nick.
Seconded by Jane.
And seconded by Jane. I'm sorry. That's right. I got to say that. All right. We'll call the vote. We're going to start down with Eric R.
Aye.
Nick.
Aye.
Ruth Ann.
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Leland.
Aye.
And the chair is also aye. The motion passes unanimous.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys. Next on the agenda is a bill for an ordinance to amend subsection 13.7.130H of the Parker Municipal Code concerning dedication statements. We will open this. I guess we've already opened the public hearing, right? Do I need to reopen for this?
Yeah, so this
item?
is actually not a public hearing, it's a public meeting, so we don't need to.
Then I'm not going to open a public meeting. Public hearing, this will be a public meeting. Does staff have a presentation?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the Planning Commission. As noted before you tonight is a proposed code amendment regarding dedication statements. Little history. Ordinance 3.362 was approved October 17th, 2022 by the Town Council concerning the location of utility easements. The primary concern back in 2022 was above-ground utilities in residential front yards. and transformers in the front yard serving single-use commercial buildings, non-residential buildings. You see the picture on the right here of utility boxes in people's front yards. Not only is it an aesthetic issue, but it's also an issue with landscaping and maintenance and all those other types of things. So we've had 9 months to use this code. We've learned a few things, and so before you tonight are some proposed amendments to address some of the things we've learned to hopefully make it operate a little smoother. This particular request is for dedication statements. We're looking to update the dedication statement regarding utilities. We have worked with Excel and Core on these comments or on these statements, and so they are in support of it. While we were under the hood, we thought it would be good to reformat this statement to make it more readable and breaking it up into categories. If you look at our current statement, it's a lot of good information, but it's all jumbled together in one paragraph that's hard to read, run-ons. This is a much more easy version to read. I did have a question from one of the commissioners regarding sidewalk maintenance, and I wanted to make sure and address that in the public hearing. Sidewalk maintenance is not addressed in the dedication statement because it's addressed by the Parker Municipal Code and by town policies. And so we wouldn't want to have a dedication statement that conflicts with the code as it changes over time. Staff recommends the Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve an ordinance that will amend the Parker Municipal Code regarding dedication statements. As always, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff?
So I have one more question about the sidewalks. What if there's an obstruction on the sidewalk? Is that, and this doesn't go directly to the dedication statement because I don't think we would cover that in the dedication statement, but how are obstructions that appear, do we have a code enforcement officer that what looks for those, or is it only when they're reported? And then the obstruction itself, has to be removed by whomever caused the obstruction or an adjoining landowner? How does that work?
So Chapter 10 specifically gives the responsibility of sidewalk maintenance being shoveling, removing obstructions to the adjoining property owner. We do have a community services division that is complaint driven. I mean, they are around in the community, but typically it's a complaint that comes in that they then go out and enforce and have the property owner, adjoining property owner remove it.
Okay, thank you. My only question.
Any other questions?
Nope.
So because it's a public meeting, there's no public comment, correct?
We do provide. the
Okay,
opportunity for
then
public comment.
we will open the discussion for public comment. Seeing no public, we shall close the discussion of public comment. Anything else we need from staff? Any other questions?
I will just comment and say thank you for working with the utility providers to make sure this meets their needs as well as the town's.
Okay, we will close the public meeting at 7:28. Commissioner discussion.
I just, on behalf of the surveyors and the surveying community, thank you for breaking this up into smaller chunks. It's much appreciated. I know because I was told.
Great work, thank you. Looks perfect.
Okay, is there a motion?
Got to open the staff report.
I move the Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve an ordinance to amend the Parker Municipal Code regarding dedications statements.
I'll second.
Moved by Eric and seconded by Nick. I'll call. So we'll start with Eric R.
Aye.
Nick.
Aye.
Ruth Ann.
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Leland.
Aye.
And the chair is aye. The motion passes unanimously. Next agenda item, this is a public meeting for a bill for an ordinance to amend Section 13.02.010 and Section 13.10.090 of the Parker Municipal Code concerning utilities. We're opening at 7:29 p.m.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Planning Commission. As noted before you tonight is a proposed ordinance to change the definition section and the utility section of the Parker Municipal Code. Can you go to the next one?
You want to go back?
No, I want to go forward. There we go. Sorry, I confused Jeff there by making one presentation that flowed into the other. History is the same on this one. Again, approved October 17th, 2022, was an ordinance regarding utilities. Primary concern was the location of utilities in the front yard. These proposals are again to address changes to improve the operations of the code. So the proposal makes a few specific changes to the code. It gives additional options for the location of utility equipment. Underground equipment in the required sidewalk and utility easements adjacent to the front yard are allowed. With some of our roadway design standards, there's a right-of-way and then there's a sidewalk and utility easement required behind that. Purpose of that sidewalk and utility easement is intentionally to allow for the sidewalk, but also because utilities have certain spacing. And so they, for lack of a better term, spill out into that sidewalk and utility easement. Those are all underground utilities that are in there. So this is clarity in the code that it's okay to be in that required easement. Underground equipment is permitted within front yard pocket easements. Pocket easements are a little hard to describe, but they're basically small easements in the front yard of a single lot that allows a utility to jog, so basically come down the side lot line, jog in front of the house to get perpendicular across the road to the other side. So small easements. And then screened above ground easements in tracks. So these are some of the open space tracks that run behind properties. These are, some of the residential buffer tracks along roads, those types of things. Allows for utilities to go in there, making sure that it's above ground, it's screened. And Jeff, I'm going to need your help. Additional changes, improved and created a definition for on-site utilities and equipment, clarifying standards for the location of equipment and easements with commercial and light industrial development, clarifying standards for property with multiple street frontages. We found that particularly in commercial, often there are 2 or 3 frontages, and sometimes it has to go in one of those frontages. Code now says that if it needs to go in one of those frontages where there are multiple, it's the least trafficked, basically. And adding a clear allowance for improvements to connections to existing lines that serve multiple developments. An example right now is we have a proposal in for a grocery up off of Cottonwood. And so there is a line that goes from Cottonwood Drive up to some existing apartments. The new commercial development's going to need to take service from that line. So it's going to require another box, another connection from there. And so that is going to end up being in the front because it's already an existing line. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve an ordinance that will amend the Parker Municipal Code regarding definitions and utilities. As always, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff?
I had one, I remember when we looked at this before, that there was an issue with some of the window wells and the ability to get the service through between, and there were some places that had been built already that were issues. I mean, they brought us pictures. How does the ordinance grandfather those in regarding correcting those? Fixing that sort of thing? How does that work with what's already happened, and how is that prevented in the future?
So we are unable to address that retrofit. I will say that the previous conversation about the dedication statements provides kind of clear instructions and responsibilities for utilities, which is helpful. That begins to answer some of that question. This code and us moving forward has side and rear easements. Part of what we've been working with the utility companies for is so that they can, when we're reviewing a site plan for a single-family home, if we see that there's a problem, they'll have the opportunity to weigh in if there's something encroaching within that 5 feet about whether it's okay or it's not okay.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
I have a follow-up to that question. So then it is essentially a referral to the utilities when it is an encroachment into the easement?
Yeah, so we'll give them, I'll call it a referral, but we'll reach out to them and provide them information to track it.
Thank you. Good follow-up. Thank you.
Okay, so as this is a public meeting, we will open the public meeting for public comment. We'll open it at 7:36 p.m. There still is no public here, so we will close the public comment at 7:36. Commissioner discussion.
I have to say, I'm really pleased with the flexibility that the town has shown in responding to the requests of the utilities, and the fact that the utilities have been willing to work with the town on that. It's nice to see people work together.
Well said.
And still protect some of the aesthetic values that I value and probably the rest of the town values as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Agree.
Yeah, I would agree with my fellow commissioners too. It's the aesthetics more that I was concerned about when this was first presented, and I can appreciate the utilities being amenable to what we've asked and working with the town. So I'm in support. Do we have a motion?
I move the Planning Commission recommend Town Council approve an ordinance to amend the Parker Municipal Code regarding utilities.
Is there a second? The motion was moved by Ruth Ann and seconded by Leland. I will call the order. Eric R.
Aye.
Nick.
Aye.
Ruth Ann.
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Leland.
Aye.
And the chair is also aye. The motion passes unanimously. We will close the public, we already closed the public meeting. How about planning commission items? Anything to discuss? How about staff items?
So real quick, for the next meeting, there are no agenda items posted, so I expect there'll be no agenda items. So what we're going to do is double up on trainings. So we'll do 2 trainings starting at 5:30 that night.
Okay. Any other items to cover?
No, sir, there are not.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Please.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll call the vote. Eric?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
Ruth Ann?
Aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Leland?
Aye.
The chair is also aye. We will adjourn the meeting at 7:38 p.m. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Well done.
Well done. Very nice.